Hey guys, how you doing? Now in this video I'm going to talk about how computers work and what individual parts makes computer system work, and we'll also around the end of the video we'll talk about what actually we are doing when we say we're programming. Now let's just start from the different parts of computer. So let's start from hard drive. So in a computer you will see something called HDD, which stands for hard disk drive. Now hard disk drive saves information. It can store information. Now hard disk drive is also called non-volatile memory. Now that's because when you switch off your computer, hard disk will still have your information. Just because you switch off your computer doesn't mean all the information from the hard drive will be wiped. It can save it, therefore you can have access to it later on when you turn your computer back on. Now there is another type of storage. I mean, it's not really storage, memory. An essential part of our computer is called RAM. Stands for random access memory. It's called random access memory because our CPU or the logic of the computer can randomly access any part of the memory and use that area. Now RAM is a volatile memory, meaning whatever is loaded in your RAM when your computer is running, as soon as you switch off your computer, it will be wiped out. Therefore, you will notice every time you turn your computer on, it takes a little bit of time. Nowadays with SSDs, in terms of HDDs, it's faster. But you know, in the old days, you had to wait every time you turn your computer on, maybe about 2-3 minutes. Then your computer would load up, your Windows or Linux will load up and be ready for you to use. That's because all the information from hard drive are loading into RAM. All the necessary information, I should say, like your operating system that you need to use your computer, will be loaded into RAM. This is where it's taking time for your computer to be ready for you to use it. Now the next part we're going to talk about is a graphics card. Now a lot of the time, and especially in old days, graphics card used to be inbuilt into your motherboard. Nowadays, you can buy extra graphic card which can hooked up to your motherboard, gives you extra power. So for gaming or for video editing, for all these type of power hungry devices, that you can attach extra graphic card. What it basically does is graphics card lets you visualize information from the computer's memory. So it helps you visualize information. This is what sends information to the monitor. So let's say from a digital information, it changes them to in a monitor, so we can understand all the information that are stored. It draws things on the monitor. Now after graphics card, we've got motherboard, also called MOBO, but I prefer calling motherboard. Now motherboard is basically a board in a computer that lets all these different parts connect to each other. And now the important part, CPU, Central Processing Unit. It does exactly what it sounds like. It does all our processing all the logical steps that computer does, all is done by CPU. It's a brain of the computer, where it only processes, where hard drive will only store information. This will process our information. Therefore, you'll hear these days i3, i5, A10, like different type of processors. i3, i5 are made by a company called Intel, and A10 and other sort of are made by AMD's. Intel, you've heard this definitely, and AMD, a different chipset making company. And now you've also got PSU, power supply, which distributes power, obviously, electricity to the motherboard and all the different parts like hard drive, graphics card, RAM, which goes through the motherboard. It manages power supply to the power supply unit to the computer. And now also you've got your keyboard, which lets you input information, sorry about the spelling there, and writing there actually. Mouse helps you navigate easily, and also on the input. And then last we've got monitor, which actually lets you see what's happening in all that area, lets you visualize and make sense out of all that information that's going on inside all these components. Visualize. I'm going to keep that open and probably open another copy here. Cancel. Let's switch back to this. So as you can understand, all these information in different components make a computer system. Now let's just quickly have a think about what computer does. Computer basically can take input from us, and it can store that input for however long we need. It can process that input based on how we wanted it to be processed, and it can output that input or that stored information in a soft copy and a hard copy. Soft copy is your monitor and hard copy is your printer. It physically prints something for us, right? So this is what computer basically does. And now one thing I want to remind you guys is, when you learn about computers and technologies and all this thing, there's a couple of things to remember if you're getting overwhelmed by all this information and sort of like second guessing yourself whether I can learn or not, is that all these different components, everything is invented by humans, by us. So definitely it can be understood if you give enough time and if you do enough research. So don't think that you can't understand or you can't learn it all just because there's too many information and too many different connecting points, and there's a lot to learn. So, and the reason we invented computers is just basically we want to do things faster. Computer itself is nothing if it doesn't help us improve our processes. So at the end of the day, it helps you run your business faster. It helps you do things a lot faster. It helps you build infrastructures a lot faster. So it is a tool for us to use to improve our lives. So don't think that it is some science voodoo that no one can understand and only some nerd in his basement can understand. So this is information or devices or processes or system that we built to make our life easier. So having said that, let's move into the next page here and draw a few other things. Now, how all these actually connect, all those parts we talked about connect together and give us the ability to process information. Let's have a look at that. Now we've got your monitor, keyboard and mouse, and we've got a tower. Now this tower will have a little power button here, and this tower will contain a motherboard. On that motherboard there will be CPU stuck in it and some RAM memory slots, and there will be a graphic card here, and there will be a hard drive connected to a motherboard which sits separately, and there will be a power supply to give power, all those other equipments I talked about, and also you can have your CD drive there, your floppy drive, which no one uses it these days, it's too old, and all these different components. You might have your webcam connected, all these different USB outlets and all that gets connected to your motherboard. So now when you turn on your computer, what happens first is all your information from your hard disk drive starts to load into your RAM, which is your memory. Now when I say all information that it needs to boot your computer into operating system. Now when I say operating system, let's quickly talk about what it is. It's a system that lets you operate a computer easily. So it's nothing more than what the two words says. It's a system that allows you to operate this computer. So now these systems are built by different companies. So the popular system obviously is built by Microsoft, which is Windows. Now Windows has different version, the latest right now is Windows 10. Now this operating system gets loaded from your hard drive into RAM. Therefore you must notice when you turn your computer on for the first time, it takes that little bit of time. That's all because this information from hard drive, which is your installed operating system, is loading into RAM. Now when you put your computer on sleep, it quickly comes back up. It doesn't take the time it used to take. That's because it's in memory. When you put a computer in sleep, it doesn't lose information from the memory. Remember, it's a volatile memory, so it only loses when you shut down your computer. So now all that information is here. When you press a button, computer just lights up. But when you switch it off, all that operating system information now needs to be reloaded back into your hard drive. So now that goes same with any sort of data, file, pictures, videos, anything you want to access from hard drive. That gets loaded into memory and starts displaying on your computer. Therefore, nowadays you will see something called SSD, not SDD, SSD, which is solid state drive. They are faster than hard drive. So to read and write information from and to, SSD is much faster. Now you can go and dig that a lot more in detail, why they're faster and how much faster, but SSDs are quite fast than hard disk drive. So now these days that's why your computers can boot up so quickly, but in old days it used to take 3 to 4 minutes, 5 minutes to have your operating system, like the start button, ready for you to use. Now once that information is loaded, your graphics card will then display that information in your monitor. Therefore when you move your mouse, all these things happens and you will see that information on your screen. And when you input something, let's say you have Microsoft Word open and you type some line. Now this line first stays in your memory. Now therefore when your computer shuts down, when you write something, you lose that information. Next time you open up, it's not there. That's because you didn't save it. You only typed it in this memory, which is volatile, which disappears when there's no electricity. So now when you write this information and hit save, what computer does is all these motherboard, CPU and all these components together, they know now to put this information back into hard drive and pack it all up. So that means it's saved, it's non-volatile. Even if there's no electricity, the file will be there next time when you turn your computer on. Now, some of you might say, hey, hang on. No, when I type something and I turn my computer, if my computer suddenly loses power, I don't always lose information. Word gives me a recover option. Now, it gives you a recover option because that application Word itself, being smart, and when it realizes you haven't saved something, it actually saves a copy in a way so it can track it back from this hard drive. So it is being saved into a hard drive without you knowing, to help you not lose your information. So that's actually a logic implemented in Word to help users. That's not because it's in some sort of new type of memory that doesn't lose anything. It's written into a hard drive without you knowing and presented back to you when it fails. So it actually helps you to when you forget to save information. So that's why you see sometimes, even if you don't save it, you see the information back on your screen. I hope that helped you understand what computer system is and how the basic workflow works. In the next video, we'll talk more about programming. Thanks for watching, guys.